Hi, everybody. I'm Deborah Elmore, Executive Director of the Bay Area Association of Kidney Patients. And today we have a great speaker, Elaine Perlman, here to talk about anonymous kidney donations, what it's like, and how a proposed new law may end the kidney shortage. We are a San Francisco Bay Area organization. Although our support groups, we have people from all over the US that call in, and everybody is welcome. Our purpose is to educate and support kidney patients. And this meeting will be recorded and posted on our website. And if you have questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ward, and he's our program manager, and he will introduce Elaine Perlman.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Elaine is a lifelong educator who spent 37 years teaching just about every level of school and every subject matter in her career, and then capped it off with 6 years as a professor at the renowned Teachers College at Columbia University in New York. Inspired by her son's decision to donate one of his kidneys anonymously, she decided to do the same thing. And then, enriched by that experience, she became an activist in local and national efforts to promote kidney donations and to eliminate transplant waiting lists. As such, she became the executive director of an organization appropriately called Waitlist Zero, and also the leader of the coalition to modify the National Organ Transplant Act, or NOTA, which, as you may know, bars compensation all through the United States for organ donations. At the time that NOTA was enacted, the congressional leaders noted that it might be necessary one day to adopt an exception to the bar on compensation for kidney donations, which are needed because so many people develop kidney disease. And so the coalition, not having seen any change over the last 40 years in donation patterns, has produced a bill to change the law. That bill is known as the End Kidney Deaths Act, which we're about to hear about. Elaine? You're muted.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. I'm really proud and excited to be speaking with you. I prepared a presentation, so I'm just going to share that with you, and then we'll get started from there. This has really been the honor of my lifetime to lead the national movement to pass the End Kidney Deaths Act. This is a very exciting program that I'll be sharing a lot of information with you about. And I am very enthusiastic about kidney donation. I know that many people, after they donate kidneys, are a little quiet about it, and I have been anything but quiet. In fact, I walk around New York City wearing a sandwich board that states, "Gifted my kidney to a stranger, ask me anything," or "Donated my kidney to a stranger and you can too," or most recently, passed the End Kidney Deaths Act. And this is just my way of just letting people know around me that we can give kidneys to strangers. It's really an honor to save a life by using our bodies to save, sharing a body part of ourselves to save a life. And I'm also really urging people to get activated to help us pass the End Kidney Deaths Act, because this is really a grassroots movement that really needs to ignite the nation so that we can finally end the kidney shortage. As Ward stated, I donated my kidney to a stranger because I like to follow in people's footsteps. And in that case, I donated when I followed in my son's footsteps. So what I'm going to share with you is the video of my son meeting his recipient on live television. As you can imagine, it was very emotional and very beautiful. And so I just want you to get a chance to experience that. And then from there, I'll explain to you about my journey and about the legislation that I'm doing my best to pass.
Welcome back to GMA. It is time for some Monday motivation, a really inspiring story. And this young man right here, his name is Chris. And Chris just received a kidney transplant 3 weeks ago. And these are his parents, Christina and Luis. And thank you guys for joining us this morning. Really, really appreciate it. And behind that door over there is another young man. His name is Abraham. He's a total stranger who donated his kidney to Chris. They're about to meet for the very first time. And Abraham, he cannot hear us. And Chris, we're going to have you put on this blindfold and these noise canceling headphones, because obviously I guess we don't want you to hear anything either, or see. There you go, bud. Let me help you with that. What we're going to do right now, we're going to fill everybody else in on what led to this moment. So check it out. At just 16 years old, Chris was diagnosed with lupus, an advanced kidney disease.
It was like around the beginning of the school year. Me and my brothers, we played flag football. I tried to throw the football, but like literally the ball went like a couple feet and just hit the ground. That's when I really knew that something was wrong. I ended up going to one hospital emergency room. The first thing that they told me was I had nephrotic syndrome. It was basically like my kidneys were leaking proteins and stuff throughout my body.
He needed a kidney transplant. His family prayed he would receive one instead of requiring dialysis treatments, but his kidneys began to fail, and dialysis became his only option.
The hardest part was putting him on dialysis. But he's always remained positive. When I would cry, he would text me because he would have like mask on because he couldn't breathe. He would go, "Don't worry, Mom, I'm going to graduate high school. I'm going to go to college. You don't have to worry about me. I'm going to be okay."
But then more tragedy struck their family when Chris's 13-year-old sister, Bria, passed away due to a bleeding disorder.
I was like devastated, but I sat there for a moment. I was like, it just can't be for no reason. So I ran out the room and I reached her doctor and I'm like, is there any way that she can give her kidneys to her brother? They ran some tests that his body wasn't cooperative at all. They told us late afternoon that day that there was no way that they was going to be able to transplant her organs into his.
Having that conversation with Christopher, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
After she passed away, it was really hard, especially like being away from my family because I'm always in the hospital.
Then just 1 month ago, Chris, now 21, received a call that would change his life literally.
I'm on the phone. I'm really nervous. I kind of know where it's leading, but I don't want to get my hopes up. They tell me that they have a potential donor.
That donor, 19-year-old Abraham, who learned about the prospect of donating after reading an article on kidney donation just the year before.
I realized that this is really just a chance to seriously improve someone's life.
So he took the test, and a year later, found out he was a match.
I think I felt more reassured that this was the right thing to do.
The first thing I did was like cry. I thought about my sister and everything. Then I thought about like everything that I went through and that hoping that it's finally over.
And though Chris and Abraham have never met, they now share a bond that can never be broken.
I'm so grateful to him. He basically gave me new life. Everything I do, everything I will do, I owe it to him.
Really an amazing story. And we're gonna take off the noise canceling earphone. You can take off the blindfold as well. And Chris, you ready to meet the man who gave you a kidney? All right, come on with me. Come on. You a little nervous?
Yeah.
Oh, don't be. It's gonna be all right, my friend. All right, Abraham, come on out.
Thank you.
Oh, you guys, come over. Come back to the couch with me. Oh, Abraham, thank you for being here, my friend. Oh, man, Christina, Luis, Chris's parents as well. And Chris, I wonder, what would you like to say to Abraham right now?
I really wish there was any words that I would be able to say to describe to you how grateful I am for you giving me this new opportunity. I really want you to know your kidney went to a good place. So I hope to make you proud one day. And everything I do, I'm going to do it for you.
And Abraham, I mean, what you did is amazing. And what made you, what gave the spark you to make this incredible choice to help a complete stranger?
Yeah, I feel like I have to gather myself. Yeah, I read about the possibility of kidney donation, and I learned that 100,000 people need a kidney, and that the surgery was safe, and it's an opportunity to really improve someone's life. It's so overwhelming to be here now, but I'm so happy I did it. I'm grateful to have been able to do it.
Well, we're happy. We're grateful as well. And Christina, your son, Chris is sitting here now, and he's healthy because of the gift that Abraham gave him. So, do you have anything you'd like to say to Abraham?
I just want to say thank you. There's no words that I could ever say to repay you or your family. I'm just so grateful to you.
Thank you.
And Luis, for you as a father, to see your son healthy now and to see these two together, how does that make you feel?
Very happy because this young gentleman, my son, will never, well, hopefully he won't suffer anymore. And I know he's not going to go through any heartaches and anything anymore.
Well, as he said, everything he's going to do in honor to make Abraham proud and in honor of Abraham. And what do you want to say to people out there who are at home, who may not have read the article that you read, but they are considering being a donor? What do you have to say to them?
I would say go for it. Reach out to a hospital and see if you're eligible. And if you are eligible, really consider it. I was in the hospital for 2 days. I was off painkillers in 5 days. I feel great. It's 3 weeks out. And I'm so inspired. I'm so happy that I did this. It's having somewhat of a ripple effect. My mom is now considering being a kidney donor, and she's reached out to the same hospital that I did.
And I think it's going to extend further than just your mom. I think you being here will extend it to other people out there who've been considering this. And for you, Chris, there are a lot of people who've gone through what you've been going through, because this has been a struggle for quite a while. What do you have to say to those people who have been waiting or on the list? Do you have anything encouraging words for them as well?
I know it's simple for me to just tell them not to lose hope, because at certain times I felt like I would never get better. But I know that just telling myself that I'll get better every day, eventually, hopefully I will get better. So just hoping and praying that your kidney is out there, and eventually it will come.
And we got to say, Chris, thank you, Abraham. Thank you both for letting us share your story and the bond that you guys now have for the rest of your lives. And Christina, Luis, thank you for being here. We're glad that you're doing well, Chris, and Abraham, that your recovery is going well as well. So thank you guys so much.
So hold on, let me just go to the next one. Whoops.
Welcome back to.
So from here, hold on, I'm just trying to figure out how to get back to my presentation. Sorry. I apologize. Here we go. All right. So very emotional and very beautiful. And just as an update, that was 5 years ago. Chris has finished high school. He has finished college. He wants to go to medical school, and he's a new father. So the power of a transplant. So 6 months after AB donated his kidney to a stranger, I launched a kidney chain so that people could get kidneys in Georgia, Oklahoma, and 2 in Washington State. Every time someone donates a kidney to a stranger, that kidney will ultimately go to someone who's been waiting the longest on the kidney wait list, a person who's most likely to die from the kidney shortage. And so in my case, the 4th person on my kidney chain was a person at the top of the kidney wait list. And in fact, 9,000 Americans die every year on the kidney wait list. Now, these are people who, when they join the wait list, were healthy enough to get a kidney, and it's the waiting time that kills them. And sometimes I think, what if we had a life-saving heart medication and we had a shortage of that medication, and during the shortage, 9,000 Americans died annually while waiting for the medication? We wouldn't tolerate it, right? We would put a stop to that shortage. And I believe we need to have the same standard of care for those dying from the waiting time on the kidney wait list. We need to save the lives of the 9,000 Americans dying annually And so I'm working as the leader, as Ward said, of the Coalition to Modify NODA. That's a group of us who've come together to pass the End Kidney Deaths Act. And I'm also the executive director of Waitlist Zero. Interestingly enough, my son was inspired to donate by Dylan Matthews, an excellent journalist. And the person who inspired Dylan Matthews to donate is my supervisor, Josh Morrison, the founder of Waitlist Zero. So it's a beautiful little circle of life. Now, I'm not going to talk much about the HOLD Act, but I am trying to pass 2 bills in Congress. The first one is the Honor Our Living Donors Act, and the second one is the End Kidney Deaths Act. So just a couple minutes, I'm going to spend speaking to you about the Honor Our Living Donors Act. This bill is widely supported. The bill number is 6020, and it's a much needed bill. So it is passed unanimously through the Health Subcommittee in the House. It's sponsored by Representative Obernolte from California, as well as Representative Del Bene from Washington State. So it's a bipartisan introduction, passed unanimously through the Health Subcommittee, passed unanimously through the Energy and Commerce Committee, heading for a floor vote shortly, and going to be introduced in the Senate, most likely right after the election. This bill is really uncomplicated. We have a low-income donor reimbursement program in the United States since the 80s. It reimburses about 20% of low-income donors for their costs and lost wages up to $6,000. So they actually give donors a $6,000 credit card to use as their expenses are accumulating. So it is a good program. The issue is that the law was written in kind of a crazy way, in that you need to earn less than, I think it's $53,000 in order to qualify, but it's not the donor's income they look at, but instead the recipient of the kidney's income. And so I'm a mentor for people, a volunteer mentor for people who want to donate kidneys. I was talking to an hourly worker who is a physical worker. He would have to take 6 to 8 weeks off work. His father made about $54,000 a year, so just above the threshold of the 350% poverty line cutoff that the federal government issues. So dad was making, let's say, $54,000. Son was making a little bit less. And so because of the dad's income, the son didn't qualify as a kidney donor to get the reimbursement if he would become a kidney donor. The son said, I don't want my dad paying my lost wages. And besides, he couldn't even afford 8 weeks of lost wages for me. So he removed himself from consideration of donation because he just couldn't afford it. So the HOLD Act will simply make it so that the federal government is only looking at the donor's income rather than the recipient's income when evaluating if it's a low-income donor or not. It's kind of a no-brainer bill and has broad support. And so that bill is moving steadily toward passage. The End Kidney Deaths Act, which is HR 9275, is really the game-changing legislation that I believe puts us on the pathway to finally ending the kidney shortage. So this is a 10-year pilot program. So in other words, it will be only in place for 10 years, and it will provide for every American who donates a kidney to a stranger at the top of the kidney wait list a refundable tax credit of $10,000 each year for 5 years, $50,000 in total. And we estimate that by the 10th year of the bill's passage, we will have saved the lives of up to 100,000 Americans. These are all people who would likely die on the kidney shortage. They will instead get the gold standard of kidney care, which is a living kidney transplant. Living kidneys last 2 times as long as deceased donor kidneys. So they really are amazing. And then we will also save up to $37 billion in taxes. Now, how can we get so much tax saving? I'll explain that in a few minutes. But you know, the goal of this is really to just live in a country where no one dies while waiting for a kidney. I want everyone on that wait list to be like Chris and get a kidney so that they can not only survive on dialysis, but thrive with a kidney transplant. So this is just an estimate of how much is saved every time somebody donates a kidney. And keep in mind, 80% of people with kidney failure in the United States are covered by Medicare. This is a program that began when President Nixon was in office. The joke is that the only thing in our body that is Canadian is our kidneys. If we get kidney failure, we qualify for national health insurance. The dialysis costs, these numbers are a little bit old. It's more like $100,000 per patient per year. And so we cover as taxpayers the cost of dialysis for 550,000 Americans. Annually, it's about $50 billion annually. That's 1% of all taxes that are paid. So $1 out of every 100 tax dollars goes to pay for kidney dialysis care. The number of people with kidney failure is currently 800,000 Americans. So there are roughly 250,000 Americans who are transplanted and about 550,000 who are on dialysis. And these are just, just to understand that we currently, with the 800,000 Americans with kidney failure, we're moving to 1 million Americans by 2030. So the number is increasing. And so this is really a supply and demand problem, right? It's classic Econ 101. We have the demand for kidneys growing very quickly. Over the last 25 years, it's just about doubled. And as I said, it's growing by 20% by 2030 from where we are right now. So demand is very high. Supply is very strangely for the last 25 years, stable, unchanging, and low. So we have around 6,000 living kidney donations annually, and nothing anyone has done to this point has increased that number. We've never, for example, had 7,000 living kidney donors in a single year. Now, we spend, as I said, about looking at the chart, between $90,000 and $120,000 annually for dialysis care. The one-time transplant costs about $133,000. But I just said one-time transplant. The statistics are that over a lifetime, a person will need 1.5 kidneys and transplants. And so often people do need more than one. But I think the more living kidneys we have, the longer those kidneys will be lasting. And then this next one, the next column of immunosuppressant drug coverage, that is not being offered to most patients. Very few patients qualify for it, but I put it was put in the article as something to deduct. There was an immunosuppressant bill passed in 2019. It was just enacted this year so that people are not cut off from prescription coverage for their immunosuppressants after 3 years, as was happening in earlier times. And then of course, we have the savings from the transplant. Over the course of 10 years, that would be a $517,000, roughly a $517,000 cost savings. There are different calculations. Some go lower, some go higher on how much is saved per transplant. But one thing we know is it is very cost saving when someone moves from dialysis treatment to transplant. That does not include if they return to work. Only 25% of people on dialysis actually work. And so when people return to work, they return to being taxpayers. And then the estimate is that the societal savings is about $1.5 million altogether saved when someone is transplanted. But just purely from the tax side, I just say it's about $500,000. So the question is, with the End Kidney Deaths Act is, do we want the preventable deaths to continue with half the people on the wait list dying before receiving a kidney? Or do we want those who donate kidneys to be rewarded for the generosity and heroism with a tax credit? Now, good to know that we use the tax credit system to encourage positive and pro-social behavior. I believe that donating kidneys to strangers is consistent with the goals of the tax credit system. We provide people with tax credits for, having children, getting married, buying electric cars, even getting solar panels, things that we believe are good for society. And certainly giving a kidney to a stranger, it saves a life and it also saves a tremendous amount of tax money. So I think we need to enter the era of rewarding people for the work of donation. We are sprinting to the finish line. I really love Roadrunner, one of my idols, one of my role models as I'm doing this work. I am sprinting as quickly as I can to get to the finish line because every day 25 people die on the kidney wait list. And all of them could have been saved had we had tax credits from the very beginning offered to organ donors. Now, when the National Organ Transplant Act was passed exactly 40 years ago in '84, the lead sponsor of the bill stated, hey, if we have a shortage of organ donors, let's provide them with tax credits. No one ever did it. Had we done it, we could have saved a whole lot of lives. In fact, a recent study just showed that between 2010 and 2021, an 11-year span, 100,000 Americans died on the kidney wait list. Had we had compensated strangers, all of those people could have survived and thrived. So we really got to get to that point. This is a beautiful thing from Louise Andrew. She came up with, she's a medical doctor. Her husband was just, he was just in receipt of a beautiful kidney from her husband's sister. And she's really trying to get us this law to the finish line. She's a retired ER doctor. And she said, you only need one kidney from one donor for one life saved. So let's pass one law. Let's pass the End Kidney Deaths Act. So as I said just a few minutes ago, we had 100,000 people die on the wait list in an 11-year span. And that we are, a lot of people say only 12 people die a day on the kidney wait list. If you read a lot of the organizations, that's what they state. And that's literally true, but that does not include the 12 to 13 people every day who are removed from the wait list because they become too sick to be transplanted. They also need to be counted among the people who die before receiving a life-saving transplant. And I was at a transplant ethics conference a week and a half ago at NYU, and I spoke to one of the doctors who said 4,500 people die every year from the kidney wait list. And after his talk, I said, what's up with the undercounting of the crisis? You're underplaying the crisis and making it seem less bad than it is. And he agreed with me and said he should have said it's 9,000 a year, not 4,500 a year, because you know how numbers can be used to mask something, the seriousness of an issue. And I believe that's happening very frequently in the kidney world. So it is 9,000 Americans dying annually. However, it's very important to know that 47,000 people actually die prematurely due to the kidney shortage. There are so many people who think they're on the wait list and they're not. And there are even more people who want to be on the wait list, but they cannot get onto the wait list, but they would benefit from a kidney transplant. And so the estimate is it's actually 128 people who die every day. These are people who would be able to survive and thrive with a kidney transplant. So the numbers are dire. And also, don't forget, if somebody is on dialysis and they die from heart attack, that's listed as a heart disease death rather than a kidney death. So it's actually from dialysis that the heart is deteriorating. Again, undercounting the number of people who are actually dying from the kidney shortage. So the crisis is terrible, and we just know that it is a solvable problem, which is very encouraging. As I said, our aim is to live in a country where no one will die in the next decade while waiting for a kidney. So one of the questions that I'm most frequently asked is, why is this a bill only for people who are giving kidneys to strangers? Now, we have about 6,000 Americans every year who give kidneys, living kidneys. Of that group, most are giving to loved ones. Every year, there are about 300 or 400 like AB and me who give our kidneys to strangers. So what we're doing in this pilot program is starting with this small number, growing it to 10,000 annually, demonstrating to the government and to the American people that compensating kidney donors is sensible and life-saving policy. And then once we show that it works well, since we've never compensated organ donors before, we will then advocate for this tax credit to be available to all donors in this country. And then at that point, we will truly be able to end the kidney shortage. So we're starting out just like they do in science with a small pilot program, and from there growing it into an enormous program where everyone who donates will be able to have the financial cushion provided by the tax credit. Now, one thing I do to prepare for this work every day is I chant the names of those who I know who are dying on the wait list, and each one of them represents about 10,000 people, and it's hard to picture what 10,000 or 100,000 looks like. So this is a picture of the Michigan Stadium that fits around 100,000 people in it. But my husband pointed out to me the other day that it's not just the 100,000 people's lives that will be saved. Each person is beloved and is a universe in their entire community. And so this is actually going to prevent millions of Americans from heartbreak. Because as we know, when someone that we love, whether it's a friend or a family member, that we witness their health worsening and then them dying, it is a crisis and a catastrophe for everyone. And so this is going to be so far reaching the ripple effects of saving the lives of the 100,000 people who will not survive without the passage of the End Kidney Deaths Act. We're aiming to pass the End Kidney Deaths Act if we're very fortunate this year, but more likely next spring. There is a tax package, which I've been told would be an excellent place for our bill to roll into. So here's the latest about the End Kidney Deaths Act. It was introduced in August by Representative Maliotakis from New York. Representative Harder is her co-sponsor. He's from the Sacramento area. And then it has 10 additional co-sponsors, 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats. As you can see, we only have 1 Californian represented here. We would love to have far more. California represents an enormous, I think it might even be 10% of the people currently on the wait list. And yet the waiting time in California is the longest in the country. So California desperately needs the End Kidney Deaths Act, as well as every state in the union. You know, there are 3 states in our country where they don't even have transplant centers. So we like to show our gratitude to those who are supporting us. We want to have this list to be at least 30 very shortly. So we're pushing hard to get more people to sponsor our legislation. Now, here's an example of how a person who is in Congress can really show their love for this bill. Representative Don Bacon is from the Omaha area in Nebraska. He posted this. His chief of staff is a liver recipient. Representative Bacon's mother died from while being on dialysis from lupus, and so he's very much knows about the complexities and the heartbreak of kidney failure. As I'd last seen this tweet, 84,000 people had seen it, right? So the more we can get people familiar with this bill, the better we will be in terms of getting this bill to the finish line. So I'm in a rush to meet with every member of Congress. So far, this year, I've had 288 House meetings, 92 Senate meetings. So I've met with 71% of all congressional leaders. I only have 8 more senators to meet with. Fortunately, I have met with both Senator Padilla and Butler in California, but there are a whole lot of representatives. I'll show you the names in a few minutes that I really need to meet with in California. I want to get everyone familiar with the bill so that when it comes time for the bill's passage, we have a whole lot of yes votes. We need to persuade 51% of Congress that this is the right thing to do. These are the names of the California representatives I have not yet met with. If you have any connections with these people, please, I will put my email in the chat in a few minutes. Please be in touch with me. Generally speaking, they will only meet with me if I have a constituent on the call. And these, I've made multiple requests of all of these offices, and they are really tough to get scheduled meetings with. So I would need the constituent help to get through the door. The meetings are very short, and actually you don't even need to attend it. You could just submit a written statement that you're in support of the End Kidney Deaths Act, but I need to get through the door so that I can just tell them very briefly about the bill. People love the bill. It turns out there are not many bills that both save lives and money. So it is a bill that is beloved. Now, how about that kidney donation thing? I can tell you all, it's a whole lot of work to be a kidney donor. It takes up to 6 months to get evaluated. It's a comprehensive mental health and physical health evaluation. And if you're donating to a loved one, you see 1 mental health practitioner. If you're donating to a stranger, it's 2 or 3. They do a thorough mental health check. Of 100 people that step forward to donate, only 2 actually donate. Most are medically disqualified. So it is a whole lot of time because the doctors don't want to take any risks, right? They do such a good job of checking candidates and approving candidates that living kidney donors live longer than the general population. They only take the healthiest people. Now, as Americans get less and less healthy, fewer and fewer of us would qualify to be kidney donors. And that's important to keep in mind in terms of explaining the shortage. Obviously, it's a major surgery. It's painful and stressful work. And I believe it's morally important to pay people for difficult work. Now, Dylan Matthews, I mentioned him earlier. He's the one who wrote the article that inspired AB to donate his kidney. He wrote a terrific article called The Moral Case for Paying for Donors. And he explains that, as I just did, that 47,000 people die prematurely due to the kidney shortage. That is, of course, that's including the 9,000 people who died directly on the wait list. And failing to pay donors has killed a whole lot of people. Now, here are the 3 bad arguments against paying donors that we frequently hear. But Dylan does a great job of debunking them. People think a kidney donation is too dangerous to pay people to do. But in fact, the risk of donating has dropped by 2/3 over the past decade. It's now a laparoscopic surgery. It is safe, or doctors wouldn't do it. Loggers' death rate is 10 times that of kidney donors. Roofers, fishers, truck divers, soldiers, police officers, firefighters, they all have much higher death rates than kidney donors, but no one's credibly arguing for the banning of all of those occupations because they're too dangerous. That argument shouldn't work for kidneys, right? Also good to know, we do allow surrogate parents to get paid. It's 3 times more dangerous to be a surrogate parent than to be a kidney donor. This is a frequent argument that kidney donation exploits or coerces the poor. Dylan's very eloquently states that offering money to donate will people believe it'll disproportionately push poor people to become donors, and that would constitute exploitation. because they would have not donated without compensation. But in the words of the Oxford philosopher, Professor Richards, that thinking applies to all paid work. Unless you would do your job for no payment, anyone who employed you or bought what you offered for sale would be exploiting you. And it's silly to draw the conclusion that wage labor should be banned, or workers should not be paid. And coercing somebody means using threats or force to limit that person's options, but paying for kidney donation expands options rather than limiting them. I would argue on the day of surgery, the kidney donor is doing the most work and is the only one who's not paid, right? And so that's why we have a shortage, right? If you're not going to pay someone for difficult work, having their body opened up to share a healthy part of themselves, so someone they don't even know can survive and thrive, you're just going to have a shortage, and that's what we have. This End Kidney Death Act will make it easier for people to say yes to becoming donors. So also in terms of the low-income argument, low-income people suffer the most from the kidney shortage, and the most important thing we can do for low-income Americans and all Americans is to increase the number of donations. Not sure if you're aware, but in April of this year, Representative Donald Payne Jr. from New Jersey died on the kidney wait list. He wanted to be the lead sponsor of the End Kidney Death Act. This just shows if a U.S. congressional member can't get a kidney in time to save his life, this impacts not only low-income people, not only rural people, but people from all walks of life. It's also prohibitively expensive for low-income people to become kidney donors. For someone living paycheck to paycheck, even with the End Kidney Death Act, it might be too hard to financially swing becoming a kidney donor. But most importantly, this whole idea that low-income people cannot make a good decision about what to do with their body and whether or not to donate is unscientific, paternalistic, and ignorant of how the End Kidney Death Act will work, which is upholding the very strict and excellent standards of the transplant centers. I was just in a meeting this past weekend where somebody said to me, with your bill, the quality of the kidney donations will be lower. And in fact, no, they will not be any lower. We'll have the same exact rigorous standards in place. So a lot of people argue against our bill with sort of these arguments that are not relevant to our bill. A lot of people just aren't familiar with how the transplant centers work. Will we get fewer donations if people are paid? We surveyed 288 donors, and they said 98% said having a tax credit would it make them as likely or likelier to become kidney donors. When we pay people, like people for plasma or people for all kinds of donations, we don't have shortages, and that's where we want to be. Also great to know that the medical community and the majority of Americans in multiple surveys, in every single one, have stated, yes, we're in favor of compensating donors. So this is going to be a huge hit with voters. Those are the surveys that have been offered to the American people in which they've consistently said yes to compensating. The medical community also has done some surveys. The American Society of Transplant Surgeons, the American Society of Transplant, the National Kidney Foundation, also with their boards have stated they're in favor. And so it's just very much something that people who care about saving lives are really in favor of. These are the supportive foundations for the End Kidney Death Act. We are getting opposition, strangely enough, from patient groups. This includes the American Association of Kidney Patients, the American Kidney Fund, the American Society of Transplantation, the American Society of Transplant Surgeons, and the National Kidney Foundation. So in terms of the three patient organizations, AAKP, AKF, and NKF, I believe they're financially invested in the status quo. And things are going well for them financially, and they don't want things to shift, because when you solve the kidney shortage, you have people who are less desperate, therefore less likely to donate. And when you solve the kidney shortage, you may have certain corporate sponsors, people who donate big amounts of money from the corporate world, whether that is dialysis companies or pharmaceutical companies, who perhaps, when you're saving $37 billion in taxes over 10 years, that means some people's wallets will be thinner. And those people tend to be in opposition of our bill, whether or not they say in public that they're supporting patients. Their actions are not supportive of patients' lives. They're not patient-centric, they're finance-centric. In terms of the AST and the ASTS, they have run 2 surveys among their membership, in which the majority of their membership stated that they are in favor of compensating organ donors, and yet the central office refuses to abide by the wishes of their membership. And in fact, I was with the leaders of that organization this past weekend, and they said, we don't know what our membership thinks. And I said, yes, you do. You have 2 surveys. Why are you ignoring them? National Kidney Foundation, the boards of both Arizona and Florida voted unanimously in favor of compensation. Again, they were ignored by the central office. And it's very frustrating that these organizations should be the people at the forefront of trying to pass the End Kidney Deaths Act, but it's just the opposite. I have offered to have a public debate with the organizations. So far, no one's taken me up on the offer. Here is a great QR code. You can use your cell phone cameras right now to take a photo of it. This will help lead you to the action button, which is a very easy way for you to submit a letter to your congressional leaders stating to them, let's pass the End Kidney Deaths Act. I'm trying to get 90,000 people to do it. That's as many people as we have on the wait list. We have 1,300 sent. We're aiming for 90,000. So that's a new way that you can help get this bill to the finish line. Also, you can order t-shirts. I can give you the link for those. They're about $25 each. That's a way, there's a QR code in the back of the t-shirt to help people sign up to help us. We had a really great lobby day in September, and it was amazing. We had about 40 activists come, and we had about 55 meetings, and it was really inspiring in DC. It was an excellent day of advocacy. Altogether, we had 77 meetings that week. And here are some of us at the end of lobby day celebrating. It's not the whole team, but some of us that were together, and we're just all excited to get this bill to the finish line. These are nearly all donors. This is a donor movement. We are aware that people on dialysis are often suffering from insomnia and depression. They don't have the energy to run a political movement. We are healthy enough, and we know the power of a transplant. We are moving forward. I do want to point out that there's a man with a red cap, and the 2 men to his left, the one on the far left in the darker blue shirt, he donated his kidney to a stranger. The stranger is the person who's in between him and the guy with the red hat. And Eric and Adder, they met that morning for the very first time. And it was very beautiful. Here I am in Washington trying to look very official, meeting with a senator from Georgia. My kidney flew down to Georgia, so I feel very attached to Georgia. It was just wonderful to be there, sort of in the room where everything happens, right? If you're interested in learning more about our movement, go to endkidneydeaths.org. Again, also click the action button. I'm going to stop talking now and see if there are any questions. I'm so grateful for everyone's time and attention. And I'll also put my email in the chat so that you can get in touch with me anytime. I welcome your support with getting this bill to the finish line. There really is no time to waste. And thank you so much for the opportunity. Ward, are there any questions?
First, thank you very much, Elaine, for a marvelous presentation. And I really appreciated the video about AB. I had to turn off my video so I could wipe tears from my eyes.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Now, folks, there is a button at the bottom of your screen, Q&A. So if you have questions, please put them in there. I had put together a few here. You answered some of them during the presentation, Elaine. So I won't bother to repeat those. The first question I had was, what is the status of the End Kidney Deaths Act in Congress? In the House, has it been referred to a committee? And what is the status in the Senate?
Great. Yes, thank you for that question. I'm just quickly putting my, hold on, I don't know if I can. Anyway, I just put my email in the chat, but I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, yeah, the status is this. After the election, things will move. Right now, all of October, Congress has been closed, and it's closed until after Election Day. The bill was referred to 2 committees. Now, keep in mind, it's a tax bill, so taxes go through the Ways and Means Committee. It was referred to that as the primary committee, but it was also referred to the Energy and Commerce Committee as the secondary committee. Now, the Energy and Commerce is more of a health committee. That committee can say, hey, Ways and Means, you just take it over. We don't need to go through and vote on this bill. Or we're not sure if the Energy and Commerce Committee is going to want to study this bill and vote on it, or just give it over to the Ways and Means Committee, which is really where it belongs as a tax bill. So that remains to be seen. If it will go through both committees, it will slow down the bill's progress. But I have met with most of the people on the Energy and Commerce Committee and on the Ways and Means Committee. Plus, my bill just went unanimously through the Energy and Commerce Committee, which is great. So what I'm going to be doing after the election is trying to get those two committees to consider what they call marking up and voting on the bill. And the speed with which that will be done depends on a lot of different factors. Congress is only open for 6 weeks between now and the end of the year. That's not a lot of time, but Congress has passed laws in 3 days. I mean, those were declarations of war, but they can move when they want to, right? So I'm going to be working hard on trying to get the bills to get attention. One of the issues is that we need a Congressional Budget Office score, and the Congressional Budget Office may or may not score this quickly, or may not score this at all, right? 7,000 bills are introduced every year and only 5% actually pass. So not everything is acted upon. So we have to really be persuasive in getting people to move forward. I did have a great conversation with Speaker Johnson's office not too long ago, and they said that what I'm doing is what needs to be done, and that is talking to everyone and getting everyone excited about the bill. On the Senate side, I've been assured that the bill will be introduced in a bipartisan way by a Republican and a Democrat after the election. So I do have both a senator who's Republican and a senator who's Democrat who want to. Now they both have to just win their elections, and then we're going to have the bill introduced. So again, this is the unpredictable nature of politics. Hopefully it's going to be introduced in the Senate so they can start making movement there during the Senate Finance Committee. Hopefully it will be only referred to one committee and then can move quickly. But all tax bills need to originate in the House. So we really need to see action in the House. And then, of course, it'll be hopefully rolled into a larger piece of legislation. There may be a health bill at the end of the year. Again, there's that tax bill in the spring. So the job is really just to push. Now, one of the keys to that push are getting those meetings with those California representatives. So if you have any connections there, please clue me in on that. I'm hoping, I think Deborah and Warb will share my email after this call, but just if you are at all connected with those representatives' offices, or you know someone who is, please introduce me so we can get some of those meetings on the books.
Thank you. My next question was, how will the order of transplants be decided? You know, I myself was very lucky to get a transplant in late June. But I had it done at New York University, which had a 9-month wait list. Whereas in California, the wait lists are much longer, as you mentioned. At UCSF, my application was summarily rejected because they said I would need at least 10 years on the wait list. And at my age, by the time my name would come up, I would be inoperable. So the waiting list seemed to vary very much by hospital and state. So is there going to be one waiting list, and how is the master waiting list put together?
Yeah, nothing is going to change, right, with our bill. So a lot of people said to me, hey, where's the education piece? Where's the pilot study of the piece? The more you add to a bill, the more committees it needs to go through, the more complicated it gets. So we're not changing the wait list. What we're doing is and also keep in mind, this is going to be a slow ramp up, right? Let's imagine the bill passes tomorrow. It takes 6 months to get evaluated, right? We're heading in now to 2025, and people wouldn't get their first tax credit until 2026. This is all going to be a slow ramp up, but we were told by the transplant centers that they have additional capacity for 10,000 annually. So we imagine in the first few years, it'll be a slow ramp up of people giving kidneys to strangers, and possibly in the final years of the pilot program, we will exceed the 10,000 number, but nothing will change in terms of wait lists. It will still be true that it's going to be easier to get a kidney at NYU than at UCSF. Those things aren't going to change. We're just going to have far more people who have been waiting the longest getting living kidneys from people who give kidneys to strangers, right? And so fewer people will die as a result of the waiting time. But in certain regions of the country, unless we have an abundance of people in California stepping forward, feeding into that wait list, it depends where you are. Things either will change a lot or change very little, right? So it really depends where the donors are going to come in, because as we know, this is all very regional. There's no national wait list.
One of the attendees asks, how can we as California residents help get you FaceTime with representatives? If I heard you correctly, it's an email to the representative. However, is there a template we can use, or are there any tips we should be aware of when sending the email?
Thank you so much for your interest in helping get a meeting. The best thing you can do is to email me, Elaine@waitlist0.org. Tell me who your representative is. I will send you a letter for you and their contact emails so that we can get the meeting. If you just write to their general office in the info section, contact the representative, we're not going to get a meeting that way. The way we get meetings is by writing to the chief of staff and the legislative director. The best thing to do would be is if I write to them and I copy you and I say we have a constituent who really wants to meet, and that will help because I've been emailing them since January. They know who I am. They're refusing to meet with me. Who understands why? Because this is an opportunity to save both lives and money. If you don't want to do that, what else would you ever want to accomplish? It's such an amazing opportunity. I have been very fortunate to get meetings with so many, but we just need constituents for some of those remaining Californians.
Another question I had was, why is it, as you said, that low-income people suffer the most from the kidney shortage?
So kidney failure is primarily driven by hypertension and diabetes. You know, we have tons of people who have genetic illnesses and get kidney disease from chemotherapy and from taking too much protein powder and diet pills and things like that. There are all kinds of ways to get kidney failure, but the primary drivers are, as I said, hypertension and diabetes. And we know that there are tremendous health disparities in this country. People who are lower income, who get lower wages, they tend to have health outcomes that are not that great in comparison with high income people. And so, you know, there are about half the people on dialysis found out in the emergency room. They crashed onto dialysis, right? And so if somebody doesn't do preventative health care, they're not having their kidneys checked at their annual physical, which, by the way, we have to ask, generally speaking, to get our kidneys evaluated, our protein in our urine checked, our GFR checked, our creatinine checked. We need to request that. Doctors aren't naturally doing that. I was speaking to somebody from the National Kidney Foundation who said he went to the doctor and said, check my kidney function. And the doctor said to him, I don't need to. You don't have high blood pressure. When I heard that, I was like, what? There's so many reasons why people have kidney failure, and it's not expensive to check it. Just do those few tests. People who are lower income, you know, tend to eat foods that are less healthy, tend to be more sedentary, tend to get hypertension and diabetes at a higher rate than high income people. And that is why the health disparities are the result in more kidney failure in people who live in rural counties and who are low income, unfortunately.
My last question was, is there an ethical and or a religious aversion to paying for body parts? Is that part of the opposition equation?
You know, there are people who say, oh, that kind of feels icky. You know, I don't think people should get money for that. But I think it's kind of arbitrary, as I said. So first of all religious groups are in favor of organ donation, right? There's not a religious, as I've read about it, there's no religion that says you cannot donate organs. And in terms of getting money for organs, I'm not aware of specific religions that oppose it. That could be. This is an opt-in program, right? You can still donate your kidney to a stranger and not take the tax credit, or you can take the tax credit and donate to your favorite charity. But the fact is that getting money for hard work, I think it's morally important to pay people for difficult work. It's the right thing to do. If you don't do it, the result is going to be death. Right. And so recently, Frank McCormick, who's one of my heroes and my mentors, said to me, you know, before people present arguments against compensating donors, they should say, I know the arguments I'm about to make are going to continue upholding the status quo where people are dying from preventable deaths in enormous numbers from the kidney shortage, but I'm going to make these arguments anyway, you know, because the fact is, yeah, somebody might think it's icky to get money for a kidney. I don't. I think it's well-deserved money for very hard work. That person who doesn't want to do it doesn't need to do it. But a lot of people will say yes to donation when they can finally get a financial cushion as a result of what they're doing, which is saving a life, saving money, and enduring a whole lot of pain, stress, and time in order to get to the finish line with their donation. So I think it is the fair thing to do. And the best part of it, it's life-saving.
Well, that concludes my questions on that. And unless other people in the audience want to send something in very soon, I guess we're done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elaine. That was fascinating. There is a question, will the slides be available on our website? And the answer is yes, and the video will be available on our website. Elaine put her email in the chat button, but I can also send it to the attendees. Hold on, I was trying to pull up chat. But I will be glad to share. It's Elaine at waitlist0, all one word, .org. And contact me either personally or at info@baakp.org, and I will send you Elaine's information. So Elaine, that was just fascinating. Thank you so much.
I am so honored and delighted to be here with all of you. Listen, by accident of life, I happen to be the healthy one, but I'm very aware I could have been born with kidney failure, and I would hope someone would come to my rescue, a stranger out in the distance, and give me life as I did for someone else. But I know it's just the accident of life that I happen to be the healthy one, and also the one who likes to talk and likes to get things done, so that I can help to get this to the finish line. But I do need your help. This really needs to be a national movement, and it's just something that people love the bill. We just need to keep on pushing until we get to the White House signing ceremony. Thank you so much, Deborah and Ward. I'm really happy that I had this chance, and I hope everybody has a beautiful Sunday afternoon.
Thank you, Elaine. This concludes our presentation. Thanks, Ward. Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you.
Bye.